Okay, this is my audience. Yay, okay. So, is it possible for the average Joe to make millions of dollars with no college education or no form of artistic ability? Well, that's exactly what we've seen over the past few years with the rise of reality stars. Reality TV, as we watched growing up, has changed and has evolved more into focusing on people like you and me. What I have learned over the past year being cast on a reality show is that there's a lot more involved than just starting a camera and pressing record. There's development, pitching, casting, and all those things come together to make a successful reality show. Well, the first step in the process of determining what kind of show you want to make can be very overwhelming, but the first step you need to do is determine what kind of show you want to make. As David Rupel, a writer for MTV's The Real World, said, the show has to fit into one of two categories, either little structure or heavily formatted. With that being said, the first thing you need to do is to find your place. David Rupel stated that the show with very little structure will turn everyday events into stories. An example of this kind of show would be Keeping Up with the Kardashians or Duck Dynasty. Rupel explains that editors will watch weeks' worth of footage to build a storyline based on what they have filmed. So a show with this type will take much longer to film because they don't really have any real format and they just go with it as they go. Mr. Rupel stated that a show with heavy structure will have an end result in mind. They have more of a plan and they stick to it. A show of this type would be something like Survivor or The Bachelor. Those are competition shows and typically have writers to generate dramatic situations. Dan Abrams, the producer of the Producers Guild of America, says that a show can be filmed almost half the time of an unscripted show. Why? Well, Mr. Abrams explains that usually a 2 to 3 day filming time is enough to cover 1 hour's worth of footage, or 1 hour episode, as opposed to an unstructured show takes 6 to 7 days to film a 1 hour episode, which is a big difference whenever you're going to a network, because that's a big difference budget-wise. So once you know what you're going to create, now it's time to bring in the big guns, the networks. Mia Casalvo wrote in her chapter on reality television in the book St. James, Encyclopedia of Popular Culture, that producers are looking for unique worlds and characters to be entertaining and something to watch. The show Deadliest Catch is a group of men who are out at sea trying to catch fish, and they're trying to survive. And The Real Housewives is a group of women who are also trying to survive, but in a little different situation because you're seeing all the rich people problems. But these are both good examples of interesting worlds and interesting characters because those are things that we don't see every day. Mr. Abrams says that he receives reality show pitch ideas not just from well-known producers in LA, but from people such as soccer moms, doctors, cooks, car salesmen, regular people. Dan Abrams continues to further explain that he receives thousands of pitch ideas a year and turns a large majority down because they don't hold a unique cast or show worlds that are unheard of. These are they're just simply unable to justify their uniqueness. Even though they could be good shows, they don't have one or the other. This is key in your pitch, Mr. Rupel says, because the network is about to invest millions and millions of dollars into your project, and so they want to make sure that you have done your research and you are prepared. A part of that is making sure that you are prepared and knowing which network to go to and pitch your ideas, because Mr. Rupel says that you do not want to go waste the time of an executive of a network and waste your own time because you won't get that shot for another few months. The TV Writers Vault, which contributes to over 300 leading production companies, states that the most important thing you need to do is know which audience you are targeting and do your research on them, because you want to find a gap in the market and you want to fill it. Networks are more likely to buy your project if they can see a gap and they can fill that gap, because the gap means money for them. You also need to make sure that you're not... Oh, thanks for that. Now the hard part is over and you have successfully convinced the network to buy your show and you can start production. Dan Abrams explains that it is time for you to start putting the story together. Just like any good story, a season needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mr. Rupel admits that shows that he has produced on MTV, such as The Real World, that him and his team will sometimes have to write in scenes or do voiceovers to make the story flow. They also write scenes to provide a plot twist, to keep the viewer coming back for more. You always want to have a cliffhanger in any good story. David Rupel said that the footage aired in the order that the footage that is aired is not always in the order in which they filmed it. The reason that is because sometimes it doesn't fit into the story scene. And so these scenes can be shot weeks apart, but they'll put them together to make it look like the story flowed, and sometimes they'll have to make up the story because of that. Mr. Abram also states that in his experience, cast members of the show will often complain that they were edited down too much, and they feel that the show would be more entertaining if they hadn't edited down so much of the events that occurred. Well, the reason they have to do this is because the point of the story is to get straight to the point. The viewer will lose interest if you do not get straight to the point of what you were trying to convey in this story. Television production editors will turn weeks worth of footage into minutes because they have to remember at the end of the day, it is all about telling a story. So now that you know that TV production involves some creative development, unique pitching, and lots of filming, what does that mean for you? Well, that means that you can now find your spot on TV. Whether it be singing, shopping, shooting, or surviving, there's always a spot for you. So, what's your spot on TV?